We did it. I pressed the right buttons. Welcome, everybody, to Self-Publishing Insiders. I'm Jim Azevedo, and I run marketing and corporate communications here at Draft Digital, and I'm thrilled. I have the best job because I get to welcome people like Joanna Penn and Dale Roberts and Mark Coker to the show to prognosticate and predict and talk about what's going on in the industry. And this episode is going to be all about kind of what we think is going to happen in 2025. Now, I thought I would take a moment and just introduce everybody on the panel this morning, just in case there are one or two of you out there who don't know who Joanna Penn or Dale Roberts or who Mark Coker is. So real quickly, Joanna Penn writes nonfiction for authors and is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling thriller author, writing as J.F. Penn. She's also an award-winning podcaster, creative entrepreneur, and international professional speaker. You can check out everything that Joanna has to offer and teach you by visiting her website at thecreativepenn, that's pen with two N's.com. Now, Dale Roberts is an accomplished indie author and the host of Self-Publishing with Dale on YouTube. Since 2014, Dale pursued a full-time career in self-publishing books and now shares his experiences on his YouTube channel, which is devoted to building a successful self-publishing business. His specialties include book publishing, video production, public speaking, and networking. Welcome, Dale. And Mark Coker. If you don't know Mark Coker, Mark founded Smashwords in 2008 and is largely credited with helping to democratize the publishing industry and spark the indie author revolution. Smashwords grew to support more than 150,000 authors and small independent publishers prior to its acquisition by Draft Digital in March of 2022. Mark now serves as Draft Digital's Chief Strategy Officer. Welcome, you guys. Thanks for taking some time out of your day.
Thanks, Jim.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, so lots to talk about going into 2025.
Oh, yeah.
So many topics. Where do we begin? I thought we would kind of ease into it. Let's talk about which seems to be top of mind with authors, at least at every conference that I've been attending in the past year or two. This diversification of revenue streams. Everything from direct to consumer, direct to reader, maybe getting out of exclusivity and exploring going wide. We can also talk about what's going on with licensing and large language models. So, Joanna, let me pass that over to you. The diversification of revenue streams. You see that as something that's growing in 2025?
Yeah,
Shrinking?
I think we've seen it growing over the last few years, and I feel like it's kind of going mainstream now. Last year, I feel like there was a tipping point. There's just a maturity in the indie author world. I mean, Mark and I met in Australia. It was like back in 2008, back in the beginning of, the early days of when the Kindle first launched and when ebooks were starting. And it now, we're 15, 16, 17 years on.
Something like
it's
that.
Crazy. And so this is not a new industry anymore. This is a mature industry. And selling direct, you actually have to take your e-commerce business seriously. You have to deal with taxes. You have to deal with customer data. You have to deal with a whole lot more in terms of accounting than you do if you sell through a store or any of the big retailers. So what's happened with the maturity of the business models and the maturity of the authors and the bigger numbers involved, more authors with teams, more authors with imprints, working with publishers, working with each other. So I feel like where we are with the splintering, I like the word splintering, of business models is just, I love the confidence in the indie author movement as such, we can do so many things. I mean, I've got behind me some of my, we can do foiled editions now. We can do everything now. And it feels like this real tipping point, but many of these business models, as I said, are for the more mature e-commerce type of business. So we're taking it much more seriously, and obviously that only suits some people. But yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. We can literally do anything now.
Yes. Yeah, I love that how you mentioned we're at a tipping point now, because I feel the exact same way, because the market has matured so much. We have so many tools on our fingertips, especially for those authors who are established and who are kind of getting to that next level. Mark or Dale, any comments on top of that, on top of what Joanna expertly laid out there?
Well, I would just add that, back in those early days for the first decade, the indie community, was kind of the Rodney Dangerfield of publishing. Very little respect. It was the option of last resort for most authors who sought to publish books. And what we've seen now over the last 17 years is that, especially when you look at the younger generation, self-publishing, indie publishing is now the option of first resort. So this is a dramatic sea change. And indie publishing, self-publishing is no longer really this little niche. It is part of traditional publishing now. I've said for many years now that all authors are now indie authors because all authors have a choice to make about their different publishing avenues. And, Joanna just laid out some of them. So whether you're going traditional, you're going indie, and if you're going indie, there's so many different routes to go there. We are now part of the mainstream. It doesn't mean that the traditional publishing industry and the indie movement understand each other. They still, they're finding points of collaboration, usually among bestsellers, but the two sides really still don't fully understand each other, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about that trad and indie kind of coming together a bit more a little bit later in the conversation, because there's been some things happening there as well.
But I think
Dale,
one thing I'd just add, Jim, is that, from my perspective, when you are an indie publisher, you have advantages that traditionally published authors don't have. You're able to serve the reader in ways that a traditionally published author cannot. So you're able to form a closer, more intimate, more customized relationship with your readers. And I think that's a really powerful aspect of self-publishing that even most indie authors don't fully appreciate. But you have the ability to serve your readers in ways that they can't. If you wake up and you want to discount your books, if you want to put them on sale, if you want to try some new distribution outlet or some new way of selling your book or some subscription service to make your book more accessible, more available to readers, you have that nimble ability to move and try things and experiment so much faster than the traditional publishing industry, which is still kind of moving along like a turtle.
Flexibility and control. Dale, I'll give you the opportunity if you wanted to comment on diversification of revenue streams or.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I could talk about diversification till the cows come home. I think that the modern day self-publishing model is definitely coming into a mature stage in its 100%. Life cycle, if you will. And so there's a lot of authors out there that are kind of like, okay, I published my book. What comes next? Like, I'm not really pulling the revenue that I would like to. So how do I supplement that? And that's one of the areas I feel I've very much excelled at over the years. I mean, prime example would be, of course, my two, YouTube channels that have, been a substantial, what's the word I want to shoot for? A boon on my business. It's been great that I've had, a significant amount of income coming from that. Now, are authors, required to do something like that? No, it's just an example of diversification and where I don't need to rely solely on book sales. Could I? Absolutely. But it is nice to diversify and looking at so many of the options between translation rights to even, the accessibility of different print book types. From various companies, the book vaults, the draft, the digitals, the Ingram Spark, so on and so forth. It is just amazing. We are in an amazing time right now, that we have so many options. And I think that I would implore that those folks out there that want to diversify, start with one avenue at a time and start to build it up and focus on the long term. Don't focus so much on the short-term victory. Like, oh, I started doing affiliate marketing and I'm only making $5 per month. Trust me on this. If you look at the long term, diversification will pay off as long as you're consistent about it.
Yep. Amen, brother. I'm going to bring up a quick comment because it's an excellent segue into what I wanted to ask you guys about next. comment from K9 Hannibal. Appreciate this comment. He says, or she says, nice to see you all. Any thoughts on how AI books will affect us indies? Now, before we go into all of that, I mentioned as we were, kind of in the green room back there having hors d'oeuvres and getting ready for the show, we can spend 5 episodes of Self-Publishing Insiders talking all about AI. But I wanted to ask you guys, maybe we start with, is the conversation around AI for creatives going to change in 2025? I mean, are we starting to accept it more and more? And then from there, I wanted to talk about tools and how authors and creatives are using tools, especially the authors who are career authors. Like, how are they using these tools? Let's start with Joanna again, if you don't mind, Joanna.
Yeah, sure. So I guess, yes, I also think 2025 things are starting to go mainstream. One of the big reasons is because generative AI is in every single writing tool. It's in, Google Docs, it's in Microsoft Word. Also, people are going to be using it at work and at university. So and just in general life. And so
Yes.
as authors, we're just going to start doing that. There just is nowhere where it is not at this point. And of course, we have been using various types of AI for many years, the algorithms we all rely on for sales. But I think of this as an amplification. I've obviously been pro AI since 2016 when AlphaGo beat Lisadol, the Chinese game of Go. That's when I went, I'm in. And so, in the last couple of years, I've been using it for marketing copy. All my book covers for the last 2 years have been generated with Midjourney. And then I work with my cover designer to do that. I work with Claude, I work with ChatGPT. Pro Writing Aid have just demoed their new developmental editing report to my community. It looks amazing. I still work with human editors, but all these tools have helped us amplify ourselves. We've got AI voice for audio, and I think this is the year that will also go mainstream into Spotify, into Audible. We're going to have AI translation, which again, many authors are using already through Scribe Shadow and things like that to start selling in other markets. We get emails and just translate them, and it's in every single usage now. I've been using Google Gemini Deep Research even in the last week to research my next book. Notebook LM, I'm pretty sure we all, love that. I mean, there's just so many things, and I couldn't be more excited. I also will say that just today, I added my books to Created by Humans, which is an AI licensing platform, which I had hoped Draft Digital would be doing, but they do have a non-exclusive license. So I think that will be a new revenue stream. And again, we can remember back in 2006 when a lot of people didn't think digital rights would be a thing, and they became a big thing. And now I think AI licensing rights are a big thing. So I could also talk about this for days. I'll pass it on.
Okay. Mark, let's go to you this time. AI licensing rights. We talked about the diversification of revenue streams, and do you see that as potentially an option for authors, within the next, I don't know, months, years going forward? How do you look at it?
Yeah, I do. It is an opportunity for authors. It's an opportunity I'm excited about. It's an opportunity that, we spent a big chunk of 2024 investigating. I think there is a lot of opportunity there. I don't think the indie community is ready for it yet. The indie community is, severely divided over AI training and that. And part of the problem is this huge divide in the understanding of what AI is and how it can benefit authors. So I'm optimistically, cautiously bullish on AI licensing. I hope it does become a thing. I hope that D2D someday is able to offer that when the time is right. And what D2D decided is that the time isn't yet right. We have not seen AI licensing contracts that we can feel comfortable recommending to our authors yet. And until we see that, until we see author rights respected and the ability for authors to fully define their rights, what the rights and limitations are of the licensees and how their data is going to be used. Until that happens, I think you're going to see D2D, cautious on this, because these are important things for authors to consider.
Sure.
I'd also like to just say one other thing, just on AI in general, just another aspect of it to consider within the indie community. I agree with everything that Joanne said, and I am excited about how AI tools are going to amplify the creative potential of authors and amplify the productivity of authors. It's going to accelerate the speed of thinking, the speed of creativity. But there's another side of this that I don't think that the community is fully grappled with yet. I think AI and AI writing tools are going to lead to this point of where we start to question, well, what does it really mean to be an author? Because many authors that I speak with who rave about AI, they love how it allows them to come up with story ideas and to be creative. And creativity is something that's very human, very core to who writers are. And creativity is something that many writers earned through incredible hardship, life experiences, mental illness, spectrum disorders. These things are all
100%.
rampant within the artistic community. And
within the
so
human condition.
So you've got writers that really hold their creativity dear to them. It's something that makes them feel special in the world. It makes them special in the world. It's what allows them to put out works that are wholly unique, unlike anything else. At the same time, you've got writers out there now who are using AI writing tools who are complaining that it's taking them 5 days to write a book. And how do I write the book in 3 days? What is your process to write it in 2? And so I see this causing some contention within the indie community. At the end of the day, this is progress. This is the future. There's really nothing we can do about it. Readers will decide which books are worth reading, and that's the way it's always been.
Yeah. Now, Dale, you're a creative across multiple media, but you also talk to a lot of service providers and authors. What's your take on this as far as the tools that are available out there?
Oh my gosh, it's an unending sea of opportunity. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself on this particular question here, but there are so many options available for people to take advantage of. I think, with that original question of how do I see this impacting indie authors and such, and I think that it will only impact the authors that are passive about their business, the ones that are just like, oh, I'm just going to publish and pray that that works out for the best. Then again, someone can churn out some AI generated manuscript, pump it out into the market and be passive about it and get the same type of results. I think that what's going to separate the successful authors from the unsuccessful authors are the ones that are going to be putting on that marketing hat. That's going to be spending some good time promoting and getting their work in front of more readers. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's who we're shooting for. We really want to get our books into more readers' hands, regardless of that being AI generated content or our own creative, works. So, do I think it's fair? I don't know. I mean, your guess is going to be as good as mine at this point. But I think it's all going to come down to, are you going to be passive about your author business? Because if you're going to be passive about it, then chances are very likely, there's going to be some AI, quote unquote, author that's going to pump out a book that's a better marketer than you and isn't about making passive, earnings and such like that. So that's just my hot take on it.
Could I just add there? I think this is coming back to the diversification model. This is why many of us, I'm pro AI, obviously, and I don't care how people write their books. That's up to them. I've been doing this for years. I have my process, but I think the creation of beautiful print editions with a lot of effort, as you said, around marketing, but also around product, because the reality is if you publish 3 ebooks a day or 10 ebooks a day or 1,000 ebooks a day, you're not doing special editions with a 3-week launch on Kickstarter and doing signed copies and doing boxes full of nice things and ribbons and all the end papers that we all geek out about now. So although I'm using Midjourney to design my custom end papers, I sure am doing a gorgeous print edition which is AI powered. I guess I call myself AI assisted, but that is completely different. So what I think is so important in this community is we don't say there's a binary. It's not no AI or all in AI. It's more like a gradation. And also, Mark and I, again, we remember back in the beginning how much judgment there was. Oh my goodness, the judgment was ridiculous, and the shaming of people's choices around how they write, how they publish, how they market. And enough of that already. I don't want to hear about the tsunami of crap like we did in 2009. Why do we have to go through this again? Let's just
I can hear cheers coming from the house next door.
Let's be respectful of each other, be respectful of how we create, be respectful of how we market, AI assisted or otherwise. And to me, that's the most important thing, because this is like the internet. This is like digital all over again. It's going to radically transform everything. And so, adjusting and being respectful of each other, and in politics too, is a good way forward.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes,
for
sir.
My other two distinguished panelists.
You don't get to ask questions. This is my show.
Are we going to learn over the next 2 years that a New York Times bestseller was entirely written and edited by AI? Yes or no?
I certainly think it's a possibility.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think you'll necessarily learn it. I think it will just happen. Now, I mentioned the pro writing aid earlier. I use Claude with O3 coming out from OpenAI. I'm sorry, but these models are very, very good at writing. Very, very good. They are better than most humans. They are better than average. And I'm saying that with someone with a lot of experience in writing. Now, so yes, people are going to be using these to write very good books. That's, again, something that annoys me. People are like, oh, that's a crap book, so it was written by AI. That's probably not true. There was already a Japanese prize winner who said she had 5% of her book written by ChatGPT. And I was like, yeah, that's the stuff you copied and pasted verbatim. You might have edited the rest. But basically, what we can't comment on is quality. Like, we've never been able to comment on quality. Again, this is in the eye of the beholder. But yes, I think we will increasingly use, I'm starting to think of Claude as like more of a co-writer. And like someone just mentioned, James Patterson. There are lots of authors. If you think about movie directors, musical producers, people use and work with tools to act more as a director than someone generating the words, because our books are not just word generations. They are our stories and our experience and all of that. But I think more and more we'll find ourselves conducting an orchestra of creative tools, not necessarily hammering the keys to create those words.
Yes, and I hear bestsellers tell me, they're like, look, I don't use AI tools to help me do the things that I love, because I love the craft of writing. I love figuring these things out. I use AI to do the stuff that I can't stand doing, like the outlining or the idea generation, that kind of thing, the tedious, monotonous stuff. What do you guys think about consolidation in the industry in 2025? Do you think that we're going to see, there's always a little bit of consolidation every year, but do you think we're going to see any big moves from the traditional publishers? Or do you think that traditional publishers are looking a bit more closely at the indie publishing community, at the service providers, and some of maybe the smaller indie publishers, but particularly service providers out there? Let's see. Dale, what do you think?
I certainly think that I just lost my train of thought. Ask the question again. I was expecting you to say Joanna.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I'd mix it up a little bit. Well, the industry consolidation, typically every year there's, companies buying other companies.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in the panel's take on maybe the traditional publishers, the larger traditional publishers looking into the indie community now, maybe not so much buying each other up.
I'm sure they're probably taking notes, because there are a lot of just wildly successful indie authors out there that are just doing it much differently and seeing better success. So I'm sure TradPub's definitely over here taking notes, going, okay, we've got this, let's go ahead and do this. So I'm sure they're going to be implementing a lot of those things. Now, as far as any additional consolidations with companies and such, that's way out of my wheelhouse. I won't be able to talk on anything regards to TradPub.
Yeah, no worries. Mark. Anything that you're seeing out there or hearing?
You know, when I think about kind of the macro dynamics of what's happening in traditional publishing, and then look at what's happening in indie publishing. So with indie publishing, indies now have, you know, free and ubiquitous access to incredibly powerful publishing tools that even traditional publishers don't have access to. And so we're, you know, in my view, the indie publishing community is going to grow in the years ahead. And the traditional, what we used to think of as the traditional side of the publishing industry, is going to shrink. So they're going to try to imitate. I mean, they always have since the very beginning, since the very early days, 17 years ago. They would look at what the crazy indie authors, they weren't even called indie authors then. They were called vanity publishers and self-publishers. You know, they would look at what some of these crazy authors were doing that was working, and then they started to imitate some of those things. So they're going to continue to try to imitate where they can, but we're looking at two fundamentally different business models. One model, the author is in control, and that spurs an entirely different dynamic for how you publish and how you serve your readers. And then the other dynamic is the traditional dynamic where the publisher is in control. They're making decisions for the author. And I think over time, what we're going to see is that the most successful dynamic, the most successful way to produce a reader-pleasing book and form long-term loyal relationships with your fans will be the indie route. And so that's what I see happening over the long term. And you know, eventually the two will merge. But what that means is if I'm correct, and if the traditional publishing industry continues to grow smaller, then it is going to spur more consolidation within traditional publishing. That just, you know, that's the financial reality of things. You know, big companies, if they're suffering, if their market's not growing, and it really isn't for them, they're forced to merge and get bigger to save costs.
Interesting take.
You know, the indie author community don't, you know, they've got a completely different model and much more flexible, you know, much more dynamic.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I asked the question was news broke. I think it might have been this week, maybe it was last week, or maybe it was earlier than that. Simon Maverick, which was an imprint of Simon & Schuster, has an imprint, an audiobook imprint. And the CEO of Simon & Schuster said, quote, "Indie authors are a fertile opportunity for Simon & Schuster, a fertile opportunity." Anything that you're hearing out there, Joanna, in terms of consolidation, whether it's between the smaller players, the larger players, or the larger players looking into this community in particular?
I think this has always happened. I mean, again, I think it was 2010 when like the 99-cent indies got picked up by the first trad publishers. I mean, Hugh Howey was an indie, got picked up. So was Andy Weir. I mean, these deals have been happening for years. Simon Maverick's just the latest one, but I mean, there's plenty of audio, you know, Podium picks up indie authors. I think this has been a relationship like this, and I feel like you know, I have a novel out with an agent at the moment in the USA. I feel like, again, this is part of the maturation of the market. You know, a decade ago it was all us versus them, but I just don't feel that that's necessary, and I don't think many people do anymore. It's more like, okay, we're business people. How do we get books into the hands of readers and make some money together? And that's how I look at it. I'm like, yeah, I'll do this foreign rights deal. Let's make some money together. That's kind of my attitude. But as Mark said, it's being in charge of your career. You can do traditional publishing with an independent mindset, and you know what you're signing. You understand your contractual clauses. If you license in North America, you self-publish everywhere else. You know, it's this empowerment of the indie community that I think is so important, and all of us spend time trying to educate authors around that. Your intellectual property assets have value. So when you sign contracts, and of course, people are signing a contract when they upload their book to Draft to Digital. That is as much a contract as a traditional publishing contract. So everyone needs to be aware of what they're signing, what they're uploading. But this is the empowerment of indie. So yeah, I say go out, make deals with Trad Pub. If you're happy with the terms, and be ready to negotiate those terms, because as we all know, our intellectual property assets are valuable.
Absolutely. And I want to bring up this question, which I think you kind of just answered, from Beth Cox, who asked, do you think trad publishers are a little threatened by indie authors now? And part of what you were saying, Joanna, was like, look, you guys are empowered now. You can do whatever you want with your rights. And we, all four of us probably know authors personally that we've seen get picked up by traditional publishers and maybe decided, by book 3 that they wanted to come back to self-publish because they had more flexibility, they had more control, and it turned out to be more lucrative to them as well. But I think the bottom line is you can do whatever you like now. All right. So we talked about industry consolidation. Gosh, time is flying by. In 2025, given the self-published book from Taylor Swift, I mean, celebrities have been self-publishing books now for a while, but Taylor Swift's book kind of brought it to the next level. And it seems like just everyone's talking about celebrities self-publishing books now. Do you believe we're going to see more celebrities self-published books in 2025 and beyond? Joanna, let's go back to you for this one.
Oh, I have no comment on that one. I'll let someone else go.
All right, Dale.
It's it's so funny you brought up Taylor Swift, the Errors tour, because a lot of her fans called her out on a lot of the errors that she had inside her Eras book. Love the pun. It was funny. It's a great headline. I'll say this, that I do foresee that there's going to be much more celebrities and influencers diving into the indie author space. In fact, quite a few of my YouTube brethren are putting books out. Good friend of mine, Justin Moore, just launched a crazy good book here this last week or week before that. And he probably had the opportunity to go trad pub. He did have the influence, he did have the reach, he did have the connections, but he also knew that there was a much better opportunity being an indie author, that he had more control, that he had more revenue, that he was able to just have a product out there that he could be truly proud of. So I do foresee there is going to be, Taylor's just the beginning of many things to come. Now, will we see a ton of them this year? No, but I'm sure that we're going to start to pick up momentum this year and then the years following that. And it's going to be really tough for these trad pub companies to offer them a contract that is going to be suitable for the trad pub company and the author, because the author's going to go, oh, well, I stand to lose quite a bit if I come on over to you. So why would I do that?
Okay. Any other comments on that, Mark?
Well, the answer is yes. We're going to see more because, if you've got platform, you can be a successful publisher.
Okay.
And celebrities are going to be looking to the traditional publishers who they used to look to and ask, what can you do for me that I can't do for myself?
Yeah.
And if the publisher can answer that question affirmatively, then the traditional publisher is going to get the deal, as they should. But I think now that self-publishing is mainstream, it's no longer a pursuit of shame. People don't hide from it anymore. People are proud of it. They wear the indie label on their lapel proudly. This is the future. And so, I mean, we're really moving into an author-controlled future for publishing, and I think that's nothing but great.
Okay, good comment. Just real quickly, I brought up the wrong comment. You guys are too quick for me. Angela says, Taylor Swift is proof of why we need editors.
Yes.
Good editors.
Everybody needs professional editors. Hey, Mark, I'm going to go back to you for a second, because something that you've been talking about, and I think something that we've all seen here, especially in the last, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years, we're so used to talking about the culture of indie authorship. But I think we're starting to see this trend of the rise of indie readers. Now, we were talking, again, back in the green room about how the Smashword store, the Smashword store has been growing year over year. We just completed our 8th consecutive year of sales growth. And it was news to me that 2024 grew 20% over 2023. I was like, what? I didn't know that. What's happening out there? What's happening out there among readers, do you think?
Look, for the last couple of years, I've been surprised by the sales results and the durability of the sales growth at the Smashwords store, because, you know, we're a small company. Drafted Digital is a small company. We don't invest millions of dollars. We really don't invest anything in the marketing of the store. It's an author-controlled store. And, you know, we've been asking this question internally: why is the store doing so well? And I have some theories now. And one of those new theories is that what we're seeing here is the emergence of a new kind of reader. A reader that actively prefers indie published books. And
oh, come on.
How else do you explain it? You know, the Smashwords store is not going to win any design awards. Okay? We're not the
you
most
heard
attractive.
You heard it here first, folks.
We're not the most attractive store out there. We don't have an app. We don't spend millions of dollars. We don't spend anything marketing it. It's the authors. The authors control the store, and it's because the emergence of a new type of reader is one of the aspects, and I think the other aspect is that the store offers authors tools that put the author in complete control. And again, this speaks to this idea that indie authors have the ability to please their readers in ways that traditionally published authors cannot. When you put the author in control of their relationship with the reader, magic happens. You know, better books are written, books written that the readers want to read. A relationship forms between the author and the reader, and the author controls it all. And so I think there's some magic happening there that is just happening organically. And you know, the Smashwords store pays higher royalties than any other major retailer. So that's one potential aspect of it. And we know a lot of our authors, you know, they hear, you know, about the opportunities to sell direct to readers. A lot of authors have tried that and have had poor results. You know, they don't want to be getting those angry emails at 3 a.m., you know, from a reader who can't open their book or is having a problem. You know, the author has to provide that customer service, customer support. You know, there are things that retailers do that are of high value to the author. And so a lot of authors are, I think, using the Smashwords store as their personal direct-to-consumer store, which, you know, we're happy to support.
Yep, I think you're right. I was going to tag on to that, but I'm looking at the clock, and I think we should move on to this question here from Mark Leslie Lefebvre. Great question, Mark. Again, we were talking about this in the green room a bit before we walked on stage here. Mark asks, what are your thoughts about the TikTok ban in the US? Very timely question. Joanna, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I think this is such a big question for so many indies. Personally, I'm not on TikTok, but I have many friends who make a vast amount of money selling on TikTok. It really is I think it's really the only kind of book sales social media platform. It is more about sales than social, really, at this point. People are selling cold to one-click buyers on very high-priced special editions, which is just amazing. I don't think we've ever really had the volume of sales that people are having on TikTok. So what I think is going to happen, of course, we're recording it on the Thursday before it might go dark on Sunday before your next president is inaugurated. I think they're going to bring it back. What I think will happen is that TikTok may die quickly, but it will come back, but it will not be the same. So I think authors who are dependent on its algorithm now will have to change tack, because the algorithm will not be the same if a US company has to buy it. Now, the brand might be the same, in the US. But of course, that does mean there's still the rest of the world, people. It's not being banned here in the UK, for example, or in Europe. But of course, it's a lot smaller market. So that's what I think. I think it will go, but I think it will come back under Donald Trump, but in a different guise. It might be sold to X, it might be sold to Meta, it might be sold to someone new. But I do think authors are going to have to think about marketing differently if they depend on TikTok.
Excellent comments. Mark or Dale, you guys have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, with that TikTok ban, I tell you, I'm fairly neutral because, I mean, I could take it or leave it, but I do understand that this is definitely something that's been great for a lot of indie authors' businesses. And it is disappointing, but here's something. If you're outside the US and this ban happens, I will tell you that the market has shrunk down just a little bit, that there is less competition. Now, is it considerably less? I don't know. I don't have those numbers. But all that to say that if you're missing out all these US authors, now everybody else throughout the world has this opportunity in front of them that they can take the ball and run with it. Now, for those of you that are in the US that are just crushing it on TikTok and have no other option, this is, gosh, we led with this, so I think we're just going to go ahead and circle back around on it. Diversification. There's a good reason why I'm not just on YouTube. I'm on other platforms. In fact, actually, to a certain extent, I'm on TikTok as well. I still haven't mastered any of the dances yet. I don't know. I'll work on it someday. But all
sure
that to
you
say
haven't.
that, what's that?
I said, sure you haven't mastered.
Yeah. No, I haven't mastered it. I have 2 left feet, man. I'm telling you, it's just a mess. But there is certainly an opportunity here. I'm not very concerned about it for my own business. But I'm definitely sympathetic to the folks that have relied a lot on TikTok to grow their brand and sell more books.
Okay. Very good.
Mark, I will just add on. Cool. Sorry, just to add on that. So Dale's obviously a YouTube expert. YouTube Shorts. I mean, the thing is, there's going to be, if this does happen and the algorithm changes, these authors who do short videos, they're going to be on YouTube Shorts. They're going to be on Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels and X videos. I mean, X is a completely different platform to Twitter. It's completely different. People are on LinkedIn doing stuff. I mean, this is, again, the splintering of social media. You cannot do it all. So people listening, you cannot do it all. You have to choose your platform of focus. And as we all know, that this will come and this will go anyway, regardless. Even if TikTok stays, within a couple of years, there'll be something else. So we all get to start again every time, basically. Sorry, Mark, did you have anything to add?
Well, I'm inclined to be against a TikTok ban. I know the U.S. government is concerned about Chinese infiltration and affecting brain control, mind control, and all that stuff through the algorithm. But I haven't seen any convincing evidence of it myself. And with the incoming president, I don't think he would let a ban stand. And if even if Trump requires that a U.S. buyer take it over, I think the algorithms for authors are probably still going to work just as effectively as they did before. And as I think Joanna just hinted at, those types of short videos, they're going to proliferate in other places, with or without TikTok. The social media tools are always changing. What works spreads, what doesn't.
I have a couple more topics I wanted to ask you guys about, but we're almost at time. So rather than do that, I thought I would just kind of go around the panel and ask if there's anything that we haven't talked about yet that you wanted to bring up. Joanna, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think is vitally important that we should at least touch upon, if we haven't already?
I think the most important thing to remember is that some things change. Like, for example, the conferences we all go to. They've used some new conferences. Some of the old conferences have gone. Some of the voices have changed. I mean, some of us old guard are still around, but the voices who people listen to have changed. The social media has changed. AI has changed. But when it all comes down to it, some things stay the same, which is the reason we do this is because we love books. And we love reading, we love writing, we love creating, we are creators. So that doesn't change, even as all these other things do. They're all just tools, they're all just amplifiers, they're all just distractions half the time. So I guess that would be my focus for everyone is, yes, there is going to be a ton more stuff going on, but remember why you do this. I've got my sign behind me. I measure my life by what I create. And that's what I just keep focusing on with all this storm and whatever going on outside. Just, just focus on that and don't get derailed.
Love it. Dale.
Boy, I couldn't say that any better. How am I supposed to follow that anyways? This has been a very delightful conversation. I don't think there's much more that I could be able to add without bloviating for the next 2 hours. So I think I'll pass it off over to Mark, because I'm sure Mark's got some sage wisdom for us.
All right, Mark, bring on the stage.
Dale's hyping me up here.
With
yeah. I just handed that off all to you. You take care of it, buddy.
I have a whole lot of thoughts swirling around in my head. When I look around the world, I look at the political dysfunction.
Yeah.
I look at the division, especially here in the United States, neighbor on neighbor. It's almost like a cold civil war. It feels like the world is upside down. And I think in this environment, I'm a naturally optimistic person. I think we're going to get through this. I think most of humanity is good and honest and wants to do good things in the world. I think in this environment, books are more important than ever before. And so, your role as an author is more critical to the future of humanity than ever before. And just remember that, publishing has always been difficult. It's always difficult to find readers. But I think if you just focus on pleasing your reader with the best book possible, I think that's your best marketing ever. Don't get, so many of the conversations that we have and that we see online are all about, what are the latest tools, tweaks, opportunities that I can take advantage of, the flashes in the pan that I can go after, where are the readers going? And you can get whiplash trying to follow all that. But I think if you focus on just writing the best book in the world that you can write, pleasing your reader, your book will spread, your book will sell on the wings of reader word of mouth. That will never change, because you can have the best marketing in the world, and you can fool a bunch of readers to buy your book. But if they don't love your book, if they're not giving you 5-star reviews, if they're not raving about your book online to their friends and family, your book's not going to have any legs to it. The authors who, like Dale says, are focused long-term. That's just so important, Dale. So thank you for mentioning that. You need to have a long-term focus. You are building a business here. And there's a lot of great advice on building your business out there. And take that long-term focus, please your readers, and your dreams, and persevere, and your dreams will be realized.
Love it. That's a great way to end this conversation. I want to thank our panelists once again, you guys, for your time, your expertise, your knowledge, and your experiences. I also want to thank our viewers for joining us week in and week out, especially for those of you who are new. Welcome. We're all here to kind of build community and learn from one another. If you are new, or if you're watching this week, whoops, I forgot to share my little banner thingy here. If you can share, comment, and subscribe to the channel, it's really helpful because it helps us spread the word and attract wonderful guests like Joanna and Dale and Mark to share their expertise with you. And then if you go to d2dlive.com, you can see who the guests will be for subsequent weeks, the guests and the topics. And finally, if you are considering self-publishing for the very first time, why not go to draft2digital.com and sign up for your free Draft to Digital account. Once again, Joanna, Dale, and Mark, thank you a million for joining me today and sharing your time and your expertise. And if you guys can all hang out backstage, I've got some new snacks to offer you back there, some drinks, and we'll talk shop. Until next,
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Ebooks are great, but there's just something about having your words in print. Something you can hold in your hands, put on a shelf, sign for a reader. That's why we created D2D Print, a print-on-demand service that was built for you. you. We have free, beautiful templates to give your book a pro look, and we can even convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound cover for print. So many options for you and your books. And you can get started right now at draftedigital.com.